Weld School. This is another video, a follow-up to the first position video that we made. That first video was covering basically sheet and plate flat metal. So now we're going to go ahead and dive into a couple of other positions that are related to welding. And we're going to start out here with pipe. So pipe, we're talking something rounded, right? So we're still going to use our maybe 1 through 6, our numbers, and then we're going to use G for groove. So your pipe is a groove weld. And we're going to go ahead, we're going to start up here at the top. And you can see that we have a 1G, and that says to rotate. So a 1G is really, the pipe is horizontal, but it's not in a fixed position. So we can actually weld a little bit here where it's relatively flat, rotate, weld, rotate, weld, so on and so forth. So that is a 1G roll weld. The second position is 2G, okay? So just like 2G or 2F that we covered in the first video, we're talking about something horizontally. So here we have 2G, we have this pipe, and it's in a fixed position this time. So it's locked into place, something that you would actually see, you know, as you're putting the pipe into a factory or school or hospital or whatever it might be. So the pipe is running vertical, maybe from the one floor to the next. It's locked into position, all right? We're gonna go ahead and weld across. The pipe's not gonna spin for us, it's locked in. We're gonna weld all the way around it. That's your 2G. There is no 3G, there is no 4G. So we're gonna hop right to what we call a 5G. A 5G, as you'll notice, is basically the same thing as our 1G, except now we're talking about a fixed position. Okay, so this, again, we're in a hospital, factory, we're putting in some pipe, we went 2G up, and then maybe we got a 90-degree angle, and now we're running some pipe horizontally, okay? So this time we are in a fixed position, and what that really means for us is that 5G, we're gonna have to weld a little bit of overhead, a little bit of vertical, and a little bit of flat. Okay, so that's what makes 5G a little bit tougher than your 1G and 2G, because it's really incorporating all these different angles. The next one is 6G, commonly the testing position for pipe, and it is just locked in at a 45-degree angle. And what it is it's going to give you, you know, some kind of overhead, a little bit of vertical going up, and then almost like flat. However, instead of just going straight in the same plane, now the plane's changing. So we're here, we're going vertical, but we're moving across on an angle, that 45-degree angle. So that's what is the 6G typically testing position. Might not see too many 6Gs out there in the field when you're actually welding, but this is the ultimate test. And then the last one is 6GR. So same thing, locked in, 45-degree angle, except this time we're gonna weld or have a plate here, this is for testing, about maybe 3/4 of an inch above your weld joint, and it's gonna mean that it's restricted. So when you're trying to make this weld, you have this giant plate that's in your way. We call that the maritime test, okay? So that wraps up our pipe positions. 1G rotated, 2G fixed, 5G locked into place, 6G 45-degree angle locked in, and then your 6GR is the same thing with a restrictor plate. All right, we're going to go ahead and continue on with the second part of this video. So we first talked about pipe, and now we're talking about maybe pipe or tubing that's actually welded to plate. So these are all pipe or tube that's welded to plate in different positions. And then this column here is actually what we call socket welds. Okay, so you have a fitting that's a little bit larger, the pipe slides into the fitting, and then it actually creates some type of a fillet. So you'll see we have F for all of these, so we're talking about something that's a fillet. If we remember, any type of fillet makes some type of triangular weldment. So something like that, something like this, doesn't really matter, okay? So this pipe could come off on an angle. I'm not so sure you would want that for a socket weld. But point is, they are fillets, and we're going to talk about 1F, 2F, 2FR, 4F, 5F, and 6F. Okay, so we're going to start out here. We have 1F. Remember, anything that's 1 is flat. So we have this component on an angle where the rod can come straight up and down, so that way it's flat. Okay, we rotate, we weld, we rotate, we weld. Okay, same thing applies to the socket weld. 2F, horizontal. Okay, just like that first video, we talked about just a 2F on plate. Same idea, except we're going around in a circle, around some type of pipe or tubing. 2FR is actually going to be like this, and it's just like this position, except we're right here, but we can weld, rotate, weld, rotate, weld, so on and so forth. So 2F rotated. So that's the R this time. It's not restricted. 4F is going to be overhead here. We have 5F, which means that this is going to look similar to our 2FR, except we can't rotate this time. We're locked into position, so we're actually going to deal with a little bit of overhead, a little bit of vertical, and a little bit of flat in there. Okay? And then we're going to finish off with 6F. Same thing applies. We're talking about a 45-degree angle, whether we're talking about the pipe or tubing the plate, or we're talking about our socket weld. We're going to lock this in at a 45. We got something that appears to be a little bit of overhead, a little bit of vertical, and flat, but it's not on a straight plane like the 5F. We're talking about that 45-degree angle. Okay, so that wraps them up. We have 1F, rotating, top-down welding, 2F, locked into position, 2FR, rotated, 4F, it's like an overhead. Here's your typical 5F, and 45-degree angle for your 6F.